Bend and Scoop is brought to you by Harder Concepts, the best bars in North Dallas. Eat, drink, party harder.
I love Bend and Scoop, man.
You want to hear some music? You'd like that, wouldn't you? Well, today you're going to get all the music you want.
The request lines are now open. KGFJ Soul Radio.
Do it now, man.
Request lines are up.
It's open, man.
Got any Blue Oyster Cult?
No, I don't have any Blue Oyster Cult. I ate 34 pairs last time around. Where were you? I was that close to working at 7-Eleven, you know.
Pass the word along. Tell the men it's time to shoot the moon.
Shoot the moon!
Out there on the microphone. On the microphone.
Shoot the moon. Shoot the moon.
The attitude dictates that you don't care whether she comes, stays, lays, or prays. I mean, whatever happens, your toes are still tapping.
Hey, Strawberry! Oh, Strawberry. Hey, what's happening, man? How you doing? This is my friend.
Hey, how you doing, man?
What you looking at, man?
Oh, nothing. I wasn't looking. I wasn't looking at his neck, man.
Can you honestly tell me that you forgot the magnetism of Robin Zander or the charisma of Rick Nielsen?
That's kid stuff.
Kid stuff. Well, how about the tunes? I want you to want me. The Dream Police. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Build your muscles picking strawberries. You know, Bend and Scoop. Maybe I could get you a job with United Fruit. I got a buddy with United Fruit. Start with strawberries, you might work your way up to these goddamn bananas. When, boy, are you gonna get your act together?
We're creating a society of cell phone crazed, marijuana smoking zombies.
Coming to you not quite live from Lukewarm Tallboy Studios deep in the land of Gar, this is Bend and Scoop, the podcast featuring music, mirth, and minutia, focused on exposing artists you probably haven't heard, but should. I'm Bob, and I'll be your tour guide on this amazingly asymmetric auditory adventure as we journey to the center of your cochlea. Welcome to episode 61. Bend and Scoop is brought to you by Harder Concepts, the best bars in North Dallas. Visit one of the 5 great Harder Concepts locations in DFW, which includes Scruffy Duffy's and Ringo's Pub, both at the shops at Legacy and Plano, Saintsbury Tavern at Austin Ranch and the Colony, the Mucky Duck at Addison Circle in Addison, and Addison Ice House at Vitruvian Park in Addison. All 5 Harder Concepts locations have great food, live music, an amazing beer and spirit selection, and a waitstaff that's second to none. Whether you want to hang out with old friends or meet some new ones, there's no better place to get together and watch your favorite sports or hear some awesome tunes. Eat, drink, party harder. Joining us at the end of the show to play a round of Is That Your Vinyl Answer in the Groovin' After Party will be our very special guest, Brad Page, from the I'm in Love with That Song podcast. We spread the gospel of vinyl here at Bend and Scoop, so be sure to tell us all about your favorite neighborhood record store by posting to @BendScoop on Twitter or Instagram using the hashtag SpinMomandPop. Our record store of the week is Sonic Boom Records in Seattle. You can follow them on Twitter @SonicBoomNation, on Instagram @SonicBoomRecords, on Facebook @SonicBoomRecords206, and you can check out their website at SonicBoomRecords.com. First up is a band out of LA called Cuffed Up. From their self-titled EP in 2020, this is Small Town Kid.
If I am stable, drag me so wasting time. These stripes don't bleed anymore. I'm a poser and a loner. Triple check my persona. Bad dreams from a simple place, so I can spin my wheels over and over again. Outside is a little more substance. Inside is a little big lie. West is a little more comfort. East Coast living on the western side. Right hand is its own temptation. Left hand is a sign of gold. I wanna feel it out. I wanna feel it out again. Outside is a little more substance. Inside is a little big lie. West is a little more comfort. East Coast living on the western side. Right hand is its own temptation. Left hand is a sign of gold. I wanna feel it out. I wanna feel it out again. WRC, Washington. I saw an old flame the other day. He was strutting down the street like he owned everything. He wore a jean jacket and high-top shoes, smoking cigarettes, yeah, he's got something to prove. Old flame, do you remember my name? Old flame, ain't you got any shame? Old flame, I ain't playing your game, you're just an old flame. Well, he's all tattooed and he's acting so tough. He came sniffing around, he ain't getting enough. Walked up to me with that smirk on his face, said, I really miss you, darling, let's get out of this place. Old flame, do you remember my name? Old flame, ain't you got any shame? Old flame, I ain't playing your game, you're just an old flame. He's up to his old tricks, yeah, I know them by heart. He can't fool me again, it's just a shot in the dark. Listen up, honey, pay attention to me. You're just a notch in my belt, that's all you'll ever be. Old flame, do you remember my name? Old flame, ain't you got any shame? Old flame, I ain't playing your game, you're just an old flame.
That was a band called Pale Lips out of Montreal from their 2017 EP Should Have Known Better. That was Old Flame. Pausable Deniability is a monthly podcast I co-host with my pal David Miller, which you can follow on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, all at Pause Deny. We post new episodes on the first day of every month. Here's another Montreal band, Plants and Animals. From their 2008 album Park Avenue, this is Feedback in the Field.
I can feel the planets at work. I can feel the moving. Oh, there's something in the air tonight. song begin. Like animals at play, we let her draw us in. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can feel a change inside. It's like a weight has been lifted. Yeah. Oh, there's something else controlling me. Let the moon turn the tide. And the feedback in the fields when the mating song begins. Like animals at play, we let her draw us in. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Blow by beautiful blow. Did you undress her slowly, like first burying her big, luscious magumbas?
Did she have any tattoos or scars or anything? I told you I don't remember. If you're so interested in my sexual failures, why don't you go out and have a few of your own?
From Seattle, that was New Age Healers off their 2019 album Debris. I Followed a Sound was the name of that song. Boy, that had a really great Black Rebel Motorcycle Club vibe to it. Love it. Campfire Songs is a podcast where I get together with my buddies Todd, Jim, and Tom to share and discuss songs with each other. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Songs Campfire and give us a listen for more great music. Here's a band from Columbus, Ohio called Bummers. From their 2019 album Buttermilk Mountain, this is Takes Time.
WNDR with fun for all of Syracuse. Just
From Nashville, that was Many Meltdowns off their 2019 EP Destined for Disaster. That song was I Wanna Die. Have you ever wanted to host a podcast? Well, all you have to do to join the Mike Hunt and host your very own episode of Assume the Juxtaposition is send me your topic idea to lukewarmtallboy@gmail.com. You can follow Assume the Juxtaposition on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, all at AssumeTJPod. This next band's out of Detroit, great name, Ryan Allen and his Extra Arms, off the brand new album What a Rip. This one's Get to the Gig.
Head to the city, looking so pretty. There's a rock show tonight. The place looks gritty, yeah, it's kinda shitty, but everything will be alright. If we get the chance, maybe we'll dance. Just looking for something to do. Got the sip on my head, where should we stand? Stand here waiting for you. Staying alive, all we need to survive. Alright. Let's get a ride with my friends by my side tonight. As a matter of fact, yeah, there's merch in the back, but I'm running low on money right now. I spent all this time on the first 45. The new one kinda sucks anyhow. Staying alive, all we need to survive. Alright. Catch you tonight with my friends by my side tonight. We're screaming for an encore. The band takes the stage. The kids are clapping for more. Do it all over again. After the show, where can we go? There's a party right down the street. When it was down, we can head out of town. Hit the diner for something to eat. Staying alive, all we need to survive. Alright. Catching a ride with my friends by my side tonight.
Hi there. I'm Russ, and I'm a Sagittarius. I enjoy surfing, candlelit dinners, and Tolstoy. I'm a mature person, and you're a mature person. So why don't we just skip all the bullshit, get rid of our inhibitions, and do what we really want to do?
Sounds good to me. Why don't we go to your place? I'll tie you up on your bed. I'd love to whip you.
No, we can't do it in my bed. I sleep with my brother, and he's a chronic bedwetter.
Born in the backseat of an automobile. My booker reads a pedal, but my hand carries the wheel. Nothing passes by me quite like smoking sliz. Getting me to the finish, man, you better get there quick, like. If I crane my neck, I can see the white line. Beating my left through the horizon and things are going just fine. Mama, don't you lose no sleep, just wish your baby love, wish your baby love. You know she flying straight and you know I'm going fast as fuck. Believe me, no reason to deceive you, baby. Back in top of dinner, my mama won't know I'm gone. I'm the place-setting son. If I'm falling behind, ain't even no reason to go back home. Ooh, I'll grab a burger on the run. Ooh, ooh,
That was Hector's Pets out of Brooklyn with a song called Fast as Fuck off a 2014 album that I'm going to be very, very careful when I pronounce this. Petophilia. Think about that one for a little bit. How Many is a podcast where I get together with my friends Jesse, Junior, Gary, and Scott to debate a variety of pop culture topics, including movies, sports, TV, music, and more. You can follow How Many on Twitter at How Many Podcast and listen at howmanypodcast.com. And don't forget to stick around for the end of the show when we'll be joined in the Groovin' After Party by our special guest, Brad Page, from the I'm in Love with That Song podcast. This next guy is from San Antonio, my old stomping grounds. His name's Bill Baird, and he releases this brand new single in 2021 called Death Smile.
Young people who are in the swing go for the compact new RCA Victor Swing Line. Portable stereo with the sound that carries. The speakers swing out, the turntable swings gently into place. That's the new RCA Victor Swing Line. The sound that carries with rugged solid-state design, separate bass, treble, and stereo balance controls, 6 big stereo speakers, and a Duralife diamond stylus. Be in the swing of things. Get the new RCA Victor Swing Line. Portable stereo with the sound that carries.
that was Lonnie Walker, who, despite sharing a name with a member of the San Antonio Spurs, is actually not from San Antonio. He's from Raleigh, North Carolina. That was from his 2020 single, Busy Bold Sounds. If you want to listen to all this great music without having to hear me ramble between songs, be sure to check out our Bend and Scoop Spotify playlist. If we played it and they have it, you can listen to it there. And if you enjoy listening to what we do here on Bend and Scoop, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you get your podcasts. And if you really enjoy what we do here at Bend and Scoop and would like to show your support, please feel free to drop a little something in our virtual tip jar at patreon.com/bendscoop. As this podcast proves every week, it's next to impossible to rid yourself of the music bug once bitten.
Once in a little-known hamlet called Hollywood, there were 3 young guys who did absolutely nothing except think, drink, eat, sleep, and dream about women. Grown-up, high-heeled, low-slung, flirtatious women. Trouble is, they couldn't find any that lived up to their high expectations, which were pretty low. Until one of them met the Countess. She had an incredible thirst for blood, virgin blood, in Hollywood no less. One look and he was smitten. One kiss and he was bitten. One bite and he was hers forever. Once bitten. You may see a funnier movie one day, but don't stick your neck out. Coming this fall from the Samuel Goldwyn Company. Once Bitten.
She'll be screaming your name. She'll go on, not me. I'm always thinking about you. You're in my head, baby. Infatuated by you. You push and pull me all night long.
people listen to people. So listen, people.
Welcome to the Groovin' After Party. Come on in and pour yourself a cold one.
Joining me now for our Groovin' After Party here on Bend and Scoop from the I'm in Love with That Song podcast is Brad Page. Brad, so glad to have you with us. Welcome.
Well, it's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me on.
So tell everybody a little bit about I'm in Love with That Song.
Well, if you'll indulge me for a minute, I like to think of it this way. Years ago, I read a book on dogs and the role that they play in war, like in the Iraq War, bomb sniffing and that kind of thing. And the way they explain the way a dog's sense of smell works, because obviously that's what you would need to kind of know as the foundation for a book like that. They explained it this way. If we were together, if I walked into a room with you and I had a McDonald's hamburger in a bag, you'd be able to smell right away. Well, it's a hamburger. You might even be able to identify that it's got that McDonald's hamburger smell. But a dog would be able to tell not just that it's a hamburger, but how much ketchup is on there. How much mustard? Is there onions? Is there a pickle? Probably could tell the fat content of the burger just by the smell. In other words, we smell it in total, a burger, but the dog is able to smell all the individual elements that make up that burger. And what I try to do on my show is to get us to listen with our ears the way a dog smells with their nose, to not just hear the song as a whole, but to hear all those different little elements that go into making a song that make it special, that make it unique. The performances, the production, the arrangements, to really help you. It really helps me to understand why I love these songs in the first place.
You know, I went back and listened to a couple of episodes, one fairly recently and one early on in your run. And the early one I picked out, and really kind of how I honed in on your podcast as a whole. I'm a huge Replacements fan. My favorite album is Pleased to Meet Me. And the very first Replacement songs I ever heard was Alex Chilton. That's what's like, what is this? I must listen to this band.
Yeah.
And your episode on Alex Chilton, and like I said, that was really early in your run, but the fact that you were able to find those isolated tracks, like I never knew there was sitar in that song. I never knew it was synth in that song. It was amazing.
Yeah. And it's, you know, my show, I don't start out the show knowing everything there is to know about these songs. I'll be listening through my record collection or whatever, and a song will pop up and I'll go, God, I really love that song. What is it about that song? I want to know more about this song. How did they write it? How did it come to be? And so I do the research and I put it together. And then on the podcast, we kind of go through it together. So, you know, it's a learning experience for me discovering all of that stuff. I'm really discovering it right along with you as a listener as we go through it. So yeah, it's just about kind of either revisiting these songs that you've known, but maybe haven't paid that much attention to a long time, or maybe this is the first time you've heard these songs, but it's just about discovering what makes songs so magical. Cause I believe music is magic.
And another thing I really enjoy is those other episodes that you do periodically on the albums that made us. And I listened to one you had with your longtime friend, Chris Porter. You picked Aftermath from the Rolling Stones, and you, my friend, picked my favorite album of all time, Who's Next?
Yeah.
Greatest album ever. And I was actually even on a podcast recently talking about that. There's a Combing the Stacks podcast where they're going back from the 60s, 70s on up and kind of discussing the highest rated albums for each year. And they got to that segment and I got to talk about that. And I don't know if you got a chance to see about a month or two ago, Apple TV came out with this series on 1971.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, it really
and
is.
the book is great too. If you haven't read that book, it's a fantastic book.
Yeah, it absolutely. And they, obviously they devoted significant focus in one episode to Who's Next. I wish they would just do a whole, like I saw the McCartney 3-2-1 thing on Hulu recently, and I'm like, man, I would love Townsend to just be in Rick Rubin's studio talking about Who's Next for like 6 episodes. That's what I want. But
I mean, it's an amazing record. It's an amazing story behind that record.
Yes.
And of course Townsend's a genius, and they were all at their peak. But yeah, fantastic record. Yeah.
But I knew between that and the Alex Chilton and the Replacements, I'm like, this is exactly my kind of podcast. This guy,
thank you so much.
He and I are in line, and it sounds like we're probably roughly around the same age too. I know Chris mentioned, he was probably in junior high or just starting high school when he got Aftermath there in the late 70s. And you mentioned your first exposure to the Who was The Kids Are All Right, late 70s. So we're probably right around the same age. So.
Yeah, I was born in 64.
Okay.
The year the Beatles came to America.
Yeah, I was 66. So we're right, just a couple years off.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. But the Who, definitely, I really enjoyed that. So folks, definitely go back, give him a listen, give all those back episodes a listen, because I was scrolling through your back catalog today, and like so many songs, like Even the Losers, it's like my favorite Tom Petty song of all time. There's so many great songs that you pick throughout. And it's not even just necessarily huge hits or big artists. You got like, there's a Utopia song, Winston Smith Takes It on the Jaw. I'm like, I didn't know anybody else ever even had that album that came off of, because isn't that off Swing to the Right?
No, actually, that's off of Oblivion.
Oh, it's Oblivion. Okay. I was thinking of the one where they're burning the books.
Right. Yeah, that's Swing to the Right. Yeah, that's a great album too.
Yeah, it is. But no, it's like nobody has it. Like I'm like, I talk to people like nobody. It didn't sell as well as some of their other stuff. But yeah. But they're really, if there's just about anything for you if you look through your back catalog there. So I highly recommend.
Yeah, well, thanks a lot. Yeah, I try to cover, most of the music is from the 60s through the 80s. There's been a couple of things from the 90s in there, but I tend to stick to that era because I just think that music is fascinating. And some of it, we do some R&B, we do some funk, we do rock, hard rock, power pop. So I try to paint with a fairly large brush. It's not genre specific.
Yeah, even saw some prog in there as well. So
yeah, a little bit. Prog is hard because I try to keep the episodes between 15 to 30 minutes, and most prog songs alone are that long. So it's a little bit hard to cover that as much as I would love to. But I've got some things in the future that are a little bit closer to that. But yeah, coming up soon. We've got Led Zeppelin. We've got The Who, another Who episode coming up, as well as some more R&B. And so, yeah, there's some good stuff on the horizon. I've been taking advantage of the downtime, so to speak, during quarantining and whatnot to really, really dig in and get a lot of episodes together. So.
Excellent. I can't wait to hear the new stuff, man. Really looking forward to it. So, Brad, let's learn a little bit more about your own personal musical journey. And we're going to play a round of something we like to call, Is That Your Vinyl Answer? And we'll start with asking you, what was the first record you remember buying with your own money?
Well, to preface that a little bit, I grew up, I didn't have any older brothers or sisters to turn me on to music. And my parents were significantly older. They were in their early 40s when I was born, which was very unusual in the 60s. These days, it's common for people to wait to have kids, but it was unusual back then. So basically, my parents are from the Lawrence Welk generation, which was enough to make you hate music, right? Having to listen to that on in the background. And I didn't have anyone in the house to turn me on to music. So I really didn't care that much about music when I was younger. I was a comic book fan, and that was my great passion was comics. And then actually the first closest to rock and roll album I ever bought was the Beach Boys Christmas album.
Okay.
Which shows you how much of a nerd I was. But then the second album that I bought with my own money was Rock and Roll Over by Kiss.
Excellent.
And was no greater band to transition a comic book kid into rock and roll than Kiss, right?
Yeah, I mean, Gene Simmons is a huge comic book guy. Obviously, they are highly influenced by comics and sci-fi and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, they were superheroes, basically, right?
Yeah.
They had costumes and characters. It was a perfect transition for a kid to find a way into rock and roll. And then once I got into music, it became my religion. But I was late. I was a late comer to it. I didn't grow up, really knowing anything that was going on at during the 70s. That was 76, 77 or so when I finally got bitten by the rock and roll bug.
Do you remember where you bought that Kiss record, and do you still have it?
I don't remember where I bought it. I don't have that original one because it got worn out. I had, like many kids of my generation, we started with those little portable record players that would fold up into almost like a suitcase. What I'm talking about, right?
That's the first one I had too.
Yeah.
The speakers would fold out and the turntable would fold down.
Yeah. It wasn't even that fancy. It had one mono speaker in it, and it was all made of plastic, the casing and everything. And it had practically a nail for a needle. You know what I mean? It just destroyed records.
Yeah.
So those early records I eventually had to replace. I still own the album, but it's not the original one I bought back in whenever that was, 77.
Now, who do you own the most albums by, and which is their favorite? Is it Kiss?
No, I would. Well, I guess if you were cheating, I would say the Beatles, because I own not only all their records, but I own everything McCartney and George and John put out. I don't own every Ringo record, and I probably never will. But barring that aside, as far as a single artist, it would be Todd Rundgren.
Okay.
I'm a huge Todd fan. Beatles are number one on my list, and Todd is number two. And that includes Utopia. And so, yeah, I own all his records. I own almost everything that he's ever produced. Because he did a lot of production work in the 70s and 80s, and kind of waned off in the 90s. But so yeah, there's a massive section of my record rack that's devoted to Rundgren vinyl.
So loving Rundgren and Utopia and the Beatles, does that mean Deface the Music is your favorite of his releases, since that's a Beatles homage?
I love that record. It's not my favorite. It's interesting. It's
it really
fun.
is.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. They came out of the Road to Utopia record, which was their most successful album. That's the one that has The Very Last Time and Set Me Free.
That was a big hit, Set Me Free. I used to play it on the radio.
That was really their only hit as Utopia in terms of something that actually charted and sold fairly well. And some critic made the comment that they sounded a lot like the Beatles or something. And Todd, I wouldn't say he took offense to it, but he said, yeah, he kind of took it as a challenge. And they went back into the studio and made this record that's sort of like a Beatles spoof / tribute, which kind of perplexed everybody, including the audience, and almost immediately lost all the new fans that they brought on with that album. But that's a classic Todd move.
Yeah,
to follow his inspiration, whether or not it's actually a good idea commercially or not.
The thing that's amazing about him is not just his solo output and the Utopia stuff, but just his production credits are incredible. Like I didn't know until recently that he was on the board for the band Music from Big Pink. He was there, and I'm like, I didn't realize he went back that far. I knew he did. We're an American Band, Grand Funk, and Zappa, one of Zappa's records, and some other stuff back in the 70s. And then, of course, in the 80s and 90s, he did tons and tons of stuff, Cheap Trick and so on. But that was just amazing to me that he even went back that far.
Yeah, he was a wunderkind. He was 16, 17, 18 years old when he was fronting the Nazz and writing amazing songs, and very quickly got into production work and was he got signed to Bearsville Records, and so that's how he got tied into all of that stuff, because that was Albert Grossman's label up there in upstate New York.
Yep. So is there a single solo Todd or Utopia record that you put as your number one?
No, because it changes all the time, right? But there's a couple that I return to frequently. There's one called Nearly Human that I love. So that's up there. That's good. Generally in the rotation among favorite Todd records. But, different moods, different days of the week, you'll pick a different favorite record.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there a specific album by Todd or any other artist that you've purchased the most times over the years?
Probably the album that I've purchased the most versions or releases or re-releases of would be Ogden's Nut Gone Flake by the Small Faces. I'm a big Small Faces fan, and I love that record. To me, that is one of the pinnacles of great psychedelic 60s Sgt. Pepper influence type records, and I'm a sucker for that stuff.
Yeah.
So I love that record. Basically, every time it's been reissued, I pony up the dough and I get it. So I have multiple versions of that on CD and whatnot.
Brad, who has the biggest vinyl collection of anyone you know, and what size is yours?
Well, I don't know about the biggest collection, but the person with the record collection that I admire the most is a guy named BJ Cramp from the Rock and/or Roll podcast. He's not really currently podcasting now, but his show was a huge inspiration for getting me off my butt and getting started with a podcast. But constantly, every episode of his show, he would play something that I had never heard. It was just a wonderful discovery, and just a really smart, really passionate music fan. And so his collection I admire. I'm sure it's huge. I don't know how many records he's got, but man, I admire his collection. As far as me, it's not particularly huge, but I've got about 1,000 LPs, about 1,300 CDs, and a ton of stuff that I've just ripped digitally.
Certainly nothing to sneeze at.
No, but I know people have quite a bit more. At one point I had a ton more vinyl, but back in the early 90s, I sold a lot of it because everyone was losing interest in vinyl then, and I felt like I should get out of it while it's still worth something. And then for many years, vinyl wasn't worth anything. And of course, now it's more valuable than CDs or anything else, but it's the cycle of life, right?
Yeah, it really is. And I kind of did the same thing a little earlier than that. Once CDs came out in the late 80s, I kind of swapped out and sold vinyl to replace with CDs because it just seemed like that was the next generation of music. But I just kind of wish I would have held on to those records.
Yeah, some of it I wish I held on to it. So my collection, I've added somewhat to it since then, but it kind of got whittled down to just kind of some oddball stuff because I sold the stuff that was the most valuable and the stuff that was kind of the most likely to sell, if you know what I mean. And that left me with a lot of sort of oddball and maybe a little bit more obscure things, or things that were so common that everybody had them and nobody would buy them,
Right. Exactly.
So I wouldn't necessarily say it's eclectic, but it's just, there's weird gaps in there. Did you wonder why would you have these records and not those? Well, that's just because I sold the other ones.
Sure.
And rebought them on CD like yourself and like many of us did during that period.
Brad, what's your favorite mom and pop record store?
There's a little shop in Northwood, New Hampshire called R.S. Butler's Trading Co. It's really kind of like an antique shop, but in the back, they've got a whole bunch of records back there. He's got a huge $1 record section, which that's what I love.
Yes.
That's what I remember from being a kid in the 70s and 80s, was perusing the dollar bin and just taking a shot on something because it was only $1.
Yeah.
And sometimes you got home and the record wasn't even worth $1. But sometimes you got home and you put that record on and it was magical.
Yep.
It was just this great record that was priceless musically, even if you only paid $1 for it. And that was the thrill of scrounging through the record bins. And then, so I got a little bit of that. I worked in a record store called Rocket Records in Nashua, New Hampshire. That was kind of the one coolest record store in New Hampshire, I would say. I was one of the first employees there. I met my wife there.
Oh, awesome.
And Chris Porter, who you mentioned, who's been on my show, we worked at that store together. I'm still in touch with a lot of the guys that worked at that store. We get together once a year, every Christmas. So that was a big part of my life too. So though that store hasn't existed in 25 years or so, that's still my favorite record store, just because I had such an emotional connection to it, having worked there. But the job was a pain in the ass in a lot of ways, but it was an experience, and I learned so much about music just being surrounded by it.
Yeah, and a lot of fond memories and good friends for sure. Yeah. So, Brad, one last question. What is your favorite cover song?
Well, I'll cheat a little bit because it's not exactly a cover song or a cover record, but the band XTC, which is one of my all-time favorite bands, under the alter ego name of Dukes of Stratosphere, they put out an album. It was an EP really initially called 25 O'Clock that had them doing new songs, but they were all totally reminiscent of that 60s psychedelic nugget style 1966, 67, 68 style of music.
Garage,
that, like I said before, garage, but really psychedelic.
Yeah.
With the backwards guitars and the sitars and the Farfisa synthesizer,
strawberry alarm clock, that sort
exactly,
of thing.
All of that kind of stuff. And it is so clever and so much fun to listen to. That I love that record. It's one of my favorite things XTC ever did, actually. Dukes of Stratosphere.
Excellent. Yeah, that's a really good choice. Really good choice. Brad, how can folks follow I'm in Love with That Song and you on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, wherever?
Well, I'm a bit of a social media hermit. I'm not on Twitter. But you can find me on Facebook. Just search for the I'm in Love with That Song podcast. We are part of the Pantheon Podcast Network. So if you are listening to any of the other Pantheon podcasts, there's some other great ones on there. We are part of that family, and you can find us there. Our website is lovethatsongpodcast.com. You can find all our previous episodes there. And we are on all the major streaming platforms, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Pandora, all of that. You can find us on there. Just look for the I'm in Love with That Song podcast.
Folks, give it a listen. You'll be in love with that podcast the way he's in love with that song. You got to give it a shot. Brad, thanks so much for being on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been fun. It's always fun to talk about music and records.
Don't worry about it, guys. It's all in the mix.
Bye-bye, lardass.
Bend and Scoop is a production of Lukewarm Tallboy Studios.
We will return tomorrow morning with the sun.
Good evening, and have a good life.